All right, everyone, I just wanted to do a quick little update video because I am currently stuck in my hotel room and I am bored, and my Legion Go's battery is dead, and I drained the batteries on both of my battery banks as well because I lost track of time. So I figured I would just film this while they charge. See, I'm making the most of my time. No, I'm not wearing glasses either. Somebody in a previous video said that I looked like reverse Clark Kent when I'm not wearing glasses. And frankly, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment, so I'm just gonna roll with it. But what am I talking about today? Well, some people have asked if I'm traveling for Starfield. I can tell you categorically, I am not. There is no shot on Todd's green earth that I would be invited to a Starfield event. But I do think it is safe to assume that there is some sort of event going on for Starfield right now. I've heard rumblings of something happening in mid-March around the game, and I know where I am right now, and I know that there are some people who are not here, and yet they are also traveling and have communicated that on their socials, which I think is pretty clearly indicative of what is happening. It seems like there is a preview event of some sort happening for Starfield for this big update that they're doing, and there are leaks suggesting across multiple platforms, for example, on Reset Era, an individual by the name of Jared US, I think probably makes more sense. He on Reset Era stated that the embargo is expected to lift on March 17th. That would line up with roughly what we expect, because other people such as Shinobi602, a well-known leaker and insider in the industry, he has said that they expect to see a big update to Starfield with a launch date around April 7th, which would mean that they are doing a preview event roughly 2.5 to 3 weeks before launch, when they're going to be bringing it to PlayStation, meaning that they'll open it up for pre-orders probably on the 17th and drop it that way. Now, what I find interesting about this, for one, is that Todd has actively talked down the update. When he went on Greg Miller's show for Kind of Funny and did an interview about it, he notably pointed out that it is not a Starfield 2.0 update, seemingly calming expectations. He actually said that it's not going to radically change anybody's mind, effectively saying if you hated Starfield, it's not going to magically make you like Starfield. You're still probably not going to love it. It's going to be better Starfield, but it's still Starfield. But what I find interesting is that they are launching this, and it is seemingly going to be going to PlayStation 5 as part of this overhaul, and they're expected to launch it at roughly $50 US, with a premium version at $70, with the standard probably being just the base game and the premium including the expansions, Shattered Space, and then the next one that's expected to come, which is expected to be called Terra Armada, which is going to be a new environment / planet landing zone or whatever, with some quests and things like that. I find this interesting because maybe I'm in a bubble. Okay, maybe I'm in a bubble, but it seems to me like bringing a game like Starfield to PlayStation 5 and spending a couple years working on the port, seemingly, is a strange use of resources. Starfield has seen its player count steadily dwindle over the last handful of months, and certainly since launch. Just looking at the Steam numbers, I mean, they peaked all time on Steam at 330,000 players. That was during early access even. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, really, really impressive numbers. And over time, it's just steadily decreased. With the first expansion, they saw a slight bump to 22,000 on Steam. And I'm sure on Xbox, that number was also decently high because of Game Pass. And so their total player counts were probably really good, frankly. If you count Game Pass, which is where a lot of people played, they probably were at 500,000 to 700,000 total players concurrent across everything. But over the last 2.5 years, the reputation of Starfield has definitely taken a beating. And I honestly don't know how many people are genuinely interested in playing it who haven't already played it or heard through the grapevine that it's not particularly great. I think when they do this update, because just to be clear, in case you're what is this update even going to do? Idle Sloth on Twitter did sort of an overhaul recap based on Shinobi's leaks and a few other sources. And it's expected that the Terra Armada storyline and expansion is going to come. If that's in line with Shattered Space, you can expect 5 to 10 hours of content. If you're doing just the main story stuff, like 5 hours. If you're doing side stuff, maybe you get another 5, but something in that range, most likely. It's expected that they're going to add in at least a couple of new enemy types, whether those are like alien monster species or just new weapon-equipped humans, we don't know. They've said that they're gonna add quality of life improvements. It's been leaked a couple of times, but it's expected that it's probably going to be things like covering up load screens, overhauls to like inventory management stuff, to the settler system to make that easier to interact with and use. Things like that that are just commonly requested quality of life improvements, but they don't fundamentally change what the game is. They just try to smooth out the rough edges, right? They also are expecting to perhaps add what's been data mined and called a cruise mode. That's not really clear what that's going to be, but it's expected that that's going to allow you to travel between planets and, space stations within a solar system seamlessly. So you can like go to our solar system and travel from Earth to Mars without a loading screen. It will just kind of go into the warp screen, warp drive, flash white, and then take you there. There still will be a load screen going from the planet's orbit down to the surface, just like before, but they probably are going to try to cover that up with like a flash of white and clouds zipping by. Basically just a sort of cutscene that covers up the load screen animation. So it's still happening behind the scenes, it just feels better. It's also expected that they're going to like overhaul the POIs and try to shake up the variability, make it so you don't see the same locations over and over again. I think what happened in the original game is that they had a truly random bucket, basically, of POIs for the algorithm to choose from. So when you landed on a planet, it just reached into the bucket and grabbed 3 POIs, threw them down, and that's what you had. Problem is, sometimes because of how randomness works, that could mean that you reach down and you grab 1 or 2 of the things that you just put on the last landing zone because it's truly random, which sounds interesting, but what actually happens is that like truly random doesn't always mean truly fun. I mean, sometimes truly random is frustrating. Notably in a game like Baldur's Gate 3, there's actually 2 different versions of how the dice rolls work. There's the truly random version, which is where you can have like 3 critical fails in a row. You could roll 3 ones in a row and there's nothing stopping that from happening. Or they have a like weighted dice version where it'll actually decrease the likelihood of repeated fails or critical successes to try and keep the game more leveled out, So true randomness isn't always a W. Sometimes you want to kind of put your finger on the scale to make it more fun, but that's beside the point. The point is they are seemingly going to revisit that algorithm that generates POIs and locations and try to do something a little bit more in line with players' expectations and make it a little bit more fun. Also overhauling things like the shipbuilding. They're going to try and redo how the actual like procedural generation works so that there's less like busy work time between points of interest. And one thing that hasn't been specifically leaked, but that I would assume is going to be there, is that they're going to make the buggy more usable. One of the problems with Starfield, even after they added the dune buggy, which is a cool thing, or rover, I guess, they added that, but because of how the maps worked, they were scattered with boulders everywhere, just with a pretty basic like procurement algorithm or whatever to spawn rocks, rotate them randomly, and place them on the map. And it made it look less barren when you're running around on foot, but when you have a buggy, it's just frustrating because the buggy never wanted to just drive. It could never drive. You always were doing this weird jump hop thing over boulders because they still were spawning as if you're running on foot. And so it just wasn't easy or fun to use the rover. It was clear that they added the rover after they built how the maps were generated. So even though it's not been leaked, I would guess that they've also revisited how things like that are generated when you land in a fishbowl to explore so that the rover is actually useful. And listen, all of these are great additions and are good, and I'm glad that they're doing it. I find it really freaking funny that it's taken 2.5 years, but to their credit, they are going back and trying to overhaul it. Is it enough to like magically change Starfield's reputation? Personally, I think it would take this 2 years ago and good expansions and stuff to bring players back in, but that's just my personal opinion. Maybe this overhaul is so impressive that it causes the player count to skyrocket again, and everybody's like, oh my God, we want Starfield 2. Forget Fallout 5. Give me Starfield 2. Maybe that's what happens. I would be surprised, frankly, like very surprised. But, never say never. It is technically possible. But overall, I think that these are good changes, and they deserve credit for fixing things and improving things. We'll see what it actually looks like when we actually see the preview embargo lift. It's expected right now to probably lift on the 17th, which would put it a solid 2.5 weeks before launch, which again, I just find that surprising because they're gonna lift the preview embargo, but they also did a preview back in November, which is bizarre. Like, to be clear, I didn't attend either, so I've not seen anything. It's why I can talk about this. You might notice that there's some channels that cover a lot of Bethesda stuff who are notably silent about all of this. And I would assume it's because they attended the November preview and or this one, and so they're under NDA until the 17th. I didn't, so I can talk about it. But I think it's just interesting that they're gonna seemingly reveal this and then wait 2.5 weeks to launch it, relying on PlayStation 5 pre-orders and stuff. I just would find that surprising. Maybe what they're gonna do is they're gonna announce it, drop it on Game Pass and PC instantly, and then put it on PlayStation in March. Maybe that's what they're doing, and they're hoping that word of mouth really pushes it out there and helps it sell well. I don't know, but I mean, I find it a fascinating strategy, really. I find it utterly fascinating. But, when I did a poll maybe a year and a half ago, I think it was on the live channel, I asked a bunch of people, I was like, hey, if you did not play Starfield before, would you be interested in buying it for, I think at the time we were guessing it was gonna be $60 or $70. Would you buy it at basically full price in order to play it on PlayStation 5? Because a lot of PS5 players never touched Starfield at all. And so while they've heard the negativity surrounding it and how mid it was, they've not tried it themselves. And a surprising number of people said that they would try it. I think it was 50 to 60% of respondents on my channel said that they would be interested in trying it themselves, even at full price. Now that was a year and a half ago. Macroeconomic factors have changed. Bethesda's reputation has, I don't think, gotten better. So that number might shift and change, but never doubt the strength of Bethesda Game Studios' reputation as a studio. Even though they've taken many hits, people still love their games. And I think there's a lot of curiosity from people who never tried Starfield. And if they're able to do a preview, and assuming the preview impressions are really positive, that could bode well for it. Now, the obvious, the jokes write themselves, frankly. The obvious point is that Bethesda's track record with release quality has been rough, to say the very least. And so I would not assume that they're going to just drop this and it's going to do it's going to magically fix stuff. Typically, and this is borne out by years and years of them putting out stuff that breaks other stuff, they will put out an update and it will break 10 other things, and then it will take them a year to a year and a half to fix it. And if that's what happens here, I would not be shocked. Maybe what did happen and what's been kind of speculated is that they intended to release this in December. There were rumors of 1 or 2 big reveals at the Game Awards that were pulled at the last second. What's possible is that Starfield was supposed to be revealed in December at the Game Awards, and that's why they did a preview in November for this update. But something happened. Maybe they decided we need to polish it more. They found that it broke something serious and they couldn't put it out as it was. And so they decided to delay it until they fixed it. And that is why it's launching now. There's speculation maybe Asha Sharma, who was in the early stages of training to become the replacement CEO, she might have stepped in and been like, no, you're going to take more time. We just don't know. But I think it makes sense if they intended to reveal and release it in December, and that something changed to push it to now. Because otherwise, I just don't know why you would do a November preview and reveal to some press and media. I just don't understand it. Because presumably, or not presumably, reportedly, according to people who attended that November preview, it was not like a feedback session. They were not previewing it and asking, what else can we change and overhaul? No, it was, this is what the update is, check it out. Like that's what it was. They were not looking for feedback. So it's not like they put it out there and then decided to change it based on feedback. They had it locked in what it was. So I just find the whole thing fascinating. But overall, it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. Presumably, like next Tuesday is what the leaks are suggesting. We will actually see. We'll see what this update holds. We'll hear from some people that saw it and presumably played it as well. And we'll see if it actually moves the needle at all. I do think some people will try it just out of pure curiosity, but like Todd said himself, it's not going to magically change what you thought. If you thought that Starfield, just as a game, was not that entertaining or captivating, it's probably not going to magically change that. I think Todd at this point is just sending the game off. And what was fascinating also about that interview he did with Greg is that he said that Elder Scrolls 6 will be in their old style, will be in their classical, I think is what he said, classical BGS style, which excited a lot of people because I think a lot of people felt as though the direction they took their formula with Starfield was the wrong direction. And so seeing Todd walking that back and deciding, okay, we're not gonna do Elder Scrolls 6, the procedural one, like they're gonna actually try and do something more traditional, which is exactly what their fans want and have been hoping for. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I'm intrigued, you know, I'm very intrigued. And nonetheless, we're gonna have lots to talk about, I'm sure. So let me know what you think, and genuinely honest question to you guys in the comments. If you did not play Starfield at launch, whether it's because it just looked lame or whether it's because you're on PlayStation and couldn't play it on Game Pass or PC, whatever the reason, if you did not play Starfield already, would what I described here get you interested in buying it at $50 a pop? Or 70 if you want the DLC that maybe the second one's gonna be amazing, I don't know. But would you actually consider doing that? I'm genuinely interested because I think it's like a non-starter, but I've been wrong before, you know, and I'm always ready to tell you guys when I've been wrong before. And this could be one where I'm just out of the loop, and maybe there's a huge community of PlayStation gamers who have been waiting for Starfield. I genuinely don't know. So please let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely interested. I head back to Colorado in the morning, and but that's weird because it takes like a long time to get back to where I live. So I got to be careful how I phrase this. But I'm going to be headed back tomorrow, and then I'll be able to resume streaming probably Friday, and I cannot wait because I miss all of you desperately. And you better believe when I get back, we're going to have lots to talk about. Okay, my friends? Until then, thanks for watching, listening to me babble and rabble. Much love. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.